Hi, my name is Michael Johnson. I'm a ballroom dance professional, a life coach, and a peak performance expert. I'm part of a group of motivated people who are dedicated to attaining emotional mastery and unlocking our full potential. We don't believe others are responsible for how we feel. In fact, we don't believe anyone can make us feel anything. We believe in the magic of ballroom dance. It has taught us how to improve our bodies, challenge our minds, and inspire our souls. And in return, I want to share those lessons with the world. We are lifers, and this is Magic for Life.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Magic for Life podcast. Michael Johnson here, and I'm so privileged and excited to have our guest today, Nadia Eftedal. She is a world champion dancer, and we are excited to have her here to share her story with us and to just kind of enlighten us on some of the things that have influenced her life and have made her the amazing person that she is. And so I can hardly wait to introduce you to her and let you learn a lot about her so that you can maybe benefit from some of her life experiences. So welcome to the podcast today, Nadia. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We wanted to start off with just getting some of your background. You know, oftentimes there's stuff on the internet, and now more than ever with the internet being a place where people will just Google your name and there's a lot of stuff up. And I've noticed with a lot of people, and especially guests that we have, you never know what's going to come up on the internet. Other people put stuff up, and so a lot of people don't really know what your story is. They don't really know about you, and unless they've had the privilege of working with you, they don't really know your history. And even those of us that have worked with you, sometimes we don't know the actual truth behind your journey and what you've done to get here. So can you tell us a little bit about your story? How'd you get into dance, and how did this whole thing get going?
Okay, yeah. Well, I started dancing. I was about 7 years old. My older brother was dancing. He started dancing because he was tall and skinny, and my mother was concerned about his lack of social graces. So I did the typical ballet, tap, tumbling, like most little girls.
Yeah.
But he used to come home and show me all these nice steps that he was learning, especially in the jive, where you kick, the man kicks his leg over and pulls the lady through the leg.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, well, that was it. I was sold. If I could be thrown around, tossed in the air, I thought I like that. So I went to the studio. It was the studio of Ken and Sheila Sloan. Mm-hmm. And at the time, they had their studio right on Hollywood Boulevard, right across the street from the Grauman's Chinese.
Yeah.
And they had a children's class on Saturday morning. So I started there. And as was very normal at the time, all the children had to do 10 dances. We did the 5 Latin dances and the 5 ballroom dances. Ken and Sheila were U.S. 10 dance champions and ballroom champions, so all the children had to do all styles, right? Both styles.
Of course, yeah.
So I did that through my youth and through my amateur days, and then basically I turned professional at 17. I had my amateur partner finished, he enlisted in the Army. And then I needed a partner, and there was a young man in the studio, and Sheila thought it was a good idea that I partner up with him.
So by this time, you were very good. They recognized that you were.
I wanted to dance. This was the thing. I wanted to dance. I did stop dancing for 1 year in high school because I thought I'd had enough dancing, and I wanted to experience life as a normal teenager because.
Yeah.
At the time when I was dancing, I was always a little shy to tell people I did ballroom dancing because ballroom dancing did not have a good reputation from chain studios way back when, right? So, but after I had this 1 year in high school, and I thought, I want to go back to dance. So I had my first professional partner at 17. And that lasted a couple of years, and my best result in America was with this partner, and we tied for first place at USDC when it was still held at the Waldorf Astoria, in the ballroom, in the Rising Star International Standard. I tied for first place in the Rising Star. Oh my gosh! So.
And I bet most people don't realize that you were a standard.
Well, I don't
dancer.
think people know that I actually did 10 dance most of my life. It was only in the last 10, 12 years with Johann that we actually chose to do only the Latin, because the truth is that he and I did 10 dance our first 2 years together.
Really?
Yeah. So I do have some experience,
Quite a
some
bit.
knowledge. So, yeah. And so that first professional partnership didn't last. And basically, at the time, I contacted, funny that I'm here with you, but I did contact Lee and Linda Wakefield
Sure.
way back when, asking, do you have any possible partners for me? I contacted people in New York, and, just for my age and for my experience, they just didn't have anything. And it was a former champion named Al France who had said, he had told Sheila, why don't you send her to Blackpool? And so Sheila, Ken and Sheila we spoke together, and anyway, my parents said, yeah, go. So I jumped on the plane with all the other Americans who were going that year in 1983, and I knew some of the former world champions because they had come to the Emerald Ball and done demonstrations, and I had lessons. So it was Espen Solberg who had introduced me to Johann, and we met on the Sunday, the first Sunday of Blackpool, and on the Tuesday night we went in the back room while the amateur Latin was taking place in the front. Espen took us in the back. We did basic fan and a hockey stick, and that was it. Is that okay?
Done deal.
Let's dance.
Oh my goodness.
And now you have to understand, at the time, these intercontinental partnerships were an absolutely new thing.
Yeah.
The only other couple who were from two different continents at the time was Nick Cotton and Debbie Avalos.
Oh my gosh.
And Nick had moved to LA, the LA area.
Right.
And so I stood there and with Johann saying, well, what do we do now? Because we didn't know. You don't know what to do.
Sure.
And it just seemed, well, either you're going to move to America, or I guess I'll have to move to Norway. Oh no, I'm coming to America. Okay. So I just called my parents and I said, well, I found a partner and I think he's going to move over. We got to do something with him. We got to.
Right.
So he came over. It was August of 1983, and it was difficult for us. I mean, we were dancing, but it was a very strong pro field here in America at the time.
Right.
Ron Montez was dancing with Liz,
Sure.
Chris and Denise Morris, Victor Verasset with Laura Powell.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a strong field.
Yeah.
So, but in Norway, there was only one professional Latin couple. So we were advised, listen, if you want to gain some exposure, if you want to just get going,
Right.
get your career going, you really should represent Norway. So we looked at each other and thought, oh, it sounds like a plan,
Yeah.
So that was what we did. I moved to Norway.
You upped and moved to Norway.
I have to move to Norway. I was
Wow.
a typical American, from Southern California, had my own car, had everything in my life was right at my fingertips.
Sure.
Moved to Norway. We had to move in with his mother. And, life in Norway was very different than life in America.
Was it a culture shock?
It was a bit of a culture shock. Part one was because, businesses closed at 7 o'clock at night, and they
Sure.
were not open on Sundays. Cost of living was very, very expensive, so we lived with his mom. We didn't have a car. We had to use his mom's car. And I just thought, life is easy and convenient in America.
Sure.
You can go anywhere all day long, any day of the week. You can do your banking at night, at midnight.
Of course.
life was just very different there. And this is in the 80s, right? This,
Wow.
by the time we moved, it was probably late 1984, okay,
Wow.
October of 84, by the time
Sure.
all of this transpired. Yeah, so, but what we did was we were working they have a different system in Europe, okay? They have dancing schools and dancing clubs. So we went to work in his former dancing school. The owner, she agreed that I could come in and teach, and we would teach at children's classes at night,
Sure.
and we would practice during the day. And then once a month, we would drive from Oslo to, we would take the ferry from Sweden, from Gothenburg, and we would take it to Southampton, and then driving to London, take our lessons,
my
drive
goodness.
back to Oslo. So, and we did that in the
Wow.
dead of winter, and that was tough because I didn't
Wow.
really have much experience driving in snow, but I learned quickly.
And on the other side of the road.
No, they're
Oh, they're
on
sa-
the
oh,
they're
they're
on
the
the
same.
left.
Okay.
Yeah. They're
Okay.
like us.
Okay.
So we did that. We lived in Oslo for a couple of years, and then we moved to the west coast of Norway. So we lived in Bergen
Right.
because we had a better. I'm not saying better or worse, but just there was another situation there, and they needed some teachers, so we
Oh,
moved
sure.
over there, and that was also in a very beautiful town. So after about 3.5 years, we broke into the final, the professional Latin final.
Wow.
Well, I have to back up though. The first year, I met John in August. I met him in Blackpool of '83. We went to Blackpool of '84, and we danced in the Rising Star Latin. And he was hoping we would make the 24. He thought if we could get in the 24, that would be fantastic. That's his dream. And Espen saw us dancing. We went in for lessons, and he said, "Oh, what have you been doing?" And John said, "We've just been practicing. He said, "I've been working with her, and we just practiced." And he put on the music. Okay, let's have a look at the cha-cha. And we were halfway through the cha-cha, and he took the music off, and he came over and said, "Okay, right now, what are you going to wear for Blackpool? And what are we going to do with your outfit? What are you going to do with your hair? I think you guys have a very good chance. I think you're going to do well in Blackpool." And we looked at him. We were in shock. And when John and I got together, our first Blackpool together, we tied for first place in the Rising Star Latin
Oh my gosh, at Blackpool.
at Blackpool. So I'd never danced in Blackpool before. And we walked in there. Now, so what you have to understand
Sure.
is we beat a lot of people that had been going year after year.
Of course.
So it was really an unusual situation.
A
And
really big deal.
it was he was over the moon, the fact that we made the 24. And then they said, 24, you guys will be in the final. He was like, "No way, no, we can't get in that final. You have this
Of
one,
course,
this one,
it's
this
a
one."
Pecking order,
We made the final,
Oh my
and John
goodness.
was just beside himself. And I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. I just stood there and thought, "Oh, I'm just going to jump around and do the dancing that I do."
Sure.
And what I really think was so helpful, so beneficial, was my Americanism,
Sure.
because I was trained here in America.
Yeah.
Who we are as Americans, that kind of we're free.
Yeah.
We just, I'm happy. I stick it out there, and I think that was a little bit of a shock, a just different flavor. We had something different to offer. He was very trained. He was typical in his European approach, and I wasn't. I mean, I was trained, of course. I had
Sure.
great training from Ken and Sheila all my life,
Right.
and especially Sheila was a stickler for basics.
Oh, yes.
Those feet and legs. Oh my
yeah.
gosh! But we had something to offer, and we walked in there, and we tied for first place in the Rising Star Latin.
My goodness.
And so I thought, "Oh, this is great. Yeah, wow, we tied. Next year we'll do this. In 3 years we should be champions, and I'll be done."
Right.
And he looked at me and he thought, "You have no idea." And I thought, so today I can tell you, you're right, I had no idea.
Right.
So
Probably thank goodness, right?
yeah, no, I needed to learn. I
Sure.
needed the education. I needed to go through that process. So of course that was a huge boost. So
Yeah.
that really confirmed, we got to go and represent Norway. Because you see, in that moment, we didn't represent Norway.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we didn't really, in Blackpool, you don't have to represent any one country, you know?
Yeah. It's just whatever you put on the
Yeah, it's
paper,
just whatever, you know? So then it was like, wow, okay. So that kind of gave us a jump.
Sure.
Moved to Norway after a few years. Okay, so we were in the semi and this and that. And then after about 3.5 years, probably more, 4 years, we broke into the final. We made our first final. And therefore, we could move into, we could be considered legal.
I see.
You know, so all of this immigration that kids go through here in America, I had to do that in England. We needed a studio to sponsor us. I had to go to the embassy and always have a stamp in my passport. It was so nerve-wracking. So I totally understand these young kids with immigration here, because I did it then. But you know, we moved into London and just kept working, and you know, I mean, it was wonderful. It was a fantastic experience, and I can say that I'm the first American to have won the professional Latin, the British professional Latin, even though I represented Norway. Yeah. But
you were still.
But I'm an American.
Yeah. Indeed.
So.
Who were some of your coaches during that time when you were working with? Well, I mean, during that whole time.
The whole period. Well, Espen Solberg, who put Espen and his wife Kirsten, and then Alan and Hazel Fletcher, Walter Laird, absolutely, Lorraine, Walter Laird's former partner, Peter Maxwell, right, Mick and Lorna Stylianos. Right. There was a wonderful English woman named Joan Knight. Oh, yes. She's, I think she's passed now, but just, you know, we had lessons with Nina Hunt as well. Sure. So we were at a very pivotal time in the competitive scene there. You know, everybody was living in London, but styles were emerging. Things were happening in the dancing. And so it was very, very exciting. Yeah. And long ago, you know, there were two camps. There was the Walter Laird camp and the Nina Hunt camp, and you did not cross over. Sure. But things were changing, you know, minds were opening, you know, defenses were calming down. And so, we did the bulk of our training with a certain group. But then gradually, you know, we went to these other coaches to get their input, to get their feedback, and we wanted their opinion. What do you think? We don't want them to, they don't have to favor us, because of course they're not going to. Right. But we wanted their opinion so that they didn't completely hate us or that we were doing something so against the value system then. Sure. But yes, we had our main core group of coaches. Yeah. And then we had supportive lessons around it.
Yeah. You know, there's such a powerful thing that happens when you have a good set of mentors and a good set of people that you can look up to. And you know, the names that you're mentioning there, for some of our audience, they're not ballroom dancers, but these are some of the people in the ballroom industry that are considered sort of the greats of ballroom.
They are.
And they were amazing teachers. In some of, you know, one of the names you mentioned was Lorraine, and I was not privileged during my career to work with a lot of those people, but I did get the opportunity to work with Lorraine, and she was amazing, and it was, you could feel that she was part of that, and she was part of that amazingness, and it's almost just them being together and having to keep up with each other and having to keep up with that idea of providing high-class, top-notch information was so incredible to be around. But can you tell us a little bit about the experience of working with those people? Did you know how amazing they were at the time, or was it just who you had to work with? Was they just the leaders in the industry, and that was just how it was?
Well, before I had ever gone to Europe, and like I said, Ken and Sheila, they had owned the Emerald Ball. Sure. And what was done then was they would always bring over the world champion to demonstrate and give lessons. Sure. So I had already met Alan and Hazel Fletcher and Espen
Right.
and Kirsten Solberg, and I had lessons with them.
Right.
And then there was one summer where my partner and I said, well, we better go to London and see what this whole thing is about. Why
sure.
is everybody talking about England, and
Right.
what's the deal with all these British people? And
Yeah.
so we took a month in the summer, and that's where I met Walter Laird
Uh-huh.
and Peter Eggleton. I also had ballroom lessons with Peter Eggleton that year.
Yeah.
And I had lessons with Walter Laird and Lorraine
Sure.
at that time.
Sure.
So this was with my first professional partner.
I see.
So my eyes were opened, and I was just in awe,
Yeah.
in the sense of, these are the people who wrote the book.
Yeah.
These are the people who are it. Huh?
Yeah.
Walter Laird was the teacher of Espen Solberg,
Yeah.
So, and of many great dancers as well, not just
course.
Espen, but
Well, sure.
and of Peter Maxwell. And so, whatever he said, there was an absolute trust. You have to understand.
Yeah.
There was, in the way we were as students, that when the teacher told you this, that, or the other thing, you had absolute trust. You
Yeah.
did it
Yeah.
because they knew what they were talking about, and if they deemed it necessary, so it was.
You did it. Yeah.
That's it. And then, it was wonderful. It was wonderful to learn from these people.
You, why do you love dance so much? I mean, I know it's your career. I know it's what you do. You're still teaching now and influencing our next generation of dancers. And why do you love dance?
Yeah, isn't that the big question? I'll tell you what it was. When I was a child, and I tried ice skating, I tried ballet, I played piano for a while. I didn't stick with anything, right?
Right.
And then there was this dancing thing. Now, first of all, I like to move because I'm a little bit I'm a tomboy. I was always a tomboy, So this moving around, jumping, and I thought, I like that moving thing. And I love music.
Sure.
Okay. Because in our home growing up, we always had music in the background.
Sure.
And I love movement, and I love music. And, I would have lessons with Ken and Sheila, and it's not that, I mean, I did my first competition. It was the 10 and under cha-cha-cha, and I was second. And I thought, I like the cha-cha. Oh, I like that one. And there was just this sense of, I like the way it makes me feel.
Right.
And then as I got older, and I thought, I wonder if I could be good at this. This was the question, the driving force. I wonder if I'm any good at it. Okay?
Right.
It didn't matter to me if I was good at ice skating, because I was always falling down, and it was cold. Okay, so it was cold. It didn't really, you see, but there was this thing, I thought, I like it, and I wonder if I can be good.
Right.
I'm okay now. I wonder how, and if I could be good, how good.
Right.
And I needed to find out. And I kept going with it. And things showed up.
Right.
And so I love learning.
Mm-hmm.
And dance is so much like life that
Sure.
I have, even though I didn't have a formal college education, I've had a formal life education
Exactly.
through my dancing.
Right.
Because the dancing took me all around the world.
Yeah.
So I've been exposed to numerous cultures and thoughts, movement pattern, just the exposure that I've had. I would not have had that through college, I'm sure. So, yeah, I just needed to know if I was any good. And as it turned out, I wasn't too bad.
And you probably know, but you're widely revered as one of the most amazing teachers. What do you attribute this to? What Why is that? I mean, we talked about your dancing and about your success in your dance career and what you did in that regard and your accolades. But as a teacher, you're one of the best teachers out there. And what can you attribute that to?
Well, first I want to say thank you. That's so nice to hear. Because I don't know what people think.
Sure.
I do what I do. All right. So I'll tell you one thing. When I was a competitor, and I used to go around and have these lessons, and there were some lessons where I thought, that is fantastic information. I just don't know what to do with that information. Right? It was a piece of information floating up in the air.
Right.
And then, so there were, every teacher has their own way of addressing a situation. And the teachers that had the greatest impact on me were the teachers who made dancing logical.
Right.
The teachers who made it so I could apply the information on a broad spectrum, you see. So I needed logic, something that I could understand, something that I could apply, and something that was not necessarily about their opinion, but it was more about the way the body works, the way what the music says. These are concrete. This is the fact. Your knee bends and your knee straightens, There are 4 beats in a bar. It's not opinion-based.
Right.
Okay? So that gave me great security. And I'm reflecting back now on the student that I was then, but I knew that competing was so stressful.
Sure.
But what I relied on was the information that I had. It brought me, it gave me a bit of relief.
Right.
I trusted the teachers who gave me clear, strong information, and it made sense, and I relied on that. Therefore, I felt I could actually go into a competition with just a better set of tools.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So many times, you'd mentioned Espen as one of your teachers, and, all of these wonderful teachers are known as some of the greats, as we mentioned before. What do you think it is about, let's use Espen. I haven't obviously had the chance to work with him, but in talking to some of our other colleagues that have had the chance to work with him, and there's just nothing but amazing things said about his teaching ability and his ability to get people to execute. What do you think it is about him that was so effective, is so effective?
Well, Espen has a great love of dance and beauty and artistry.
Sure.
Espen is a deep thinker.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a clear vision of what he feels the dancing should look like.
I see. Do you think that was consistent amongst the other great teachers that you worked with?
Some of them, not all of them.
So you think that they found other ways to attain that vision?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
maybe weren't as clear?
Absolutely. For example, Espen he's a great teacher, great vision. There's another mentor, Peter Maxwell.
Sure.
He has experience in the ballet, in the Ballet World Theater. So he's coming at dance from a slightly different perspective.
Sure.
He introduced us to a lot about dynamics, about how the function of the body.
Right.
So it was a little bit more how to use energy in order to create dynamic change in the body, how to when John and I danced together, probably our contribution to the Latin world was power and energy.
Sure.
Okay, we had a segue, and it was like the talk of the town at the time because it was all on about speed.
Right.
Okay, so through the learning, what Peter Maxwell presented, he enabled me to understand how my body works in order to create acceleration.
Sure.
Okay, so he came at it maybe a bit more from an engineering
Right.
approach, you see. So it was about, compression, energy, acceleration, deceleration, these elements that I could then execute in my body and put it out there. And so his approach is very, very different. However, it's hugely effective. And he was one to say, to be able to eliminate excess, wasting energy, anytime you don't want to waste energy, and be more efficient in the way you use your body. Right. So you see, his approach is completely different than the way Espen approaches it.
Yeah.
And the end product of what they produce within couples, I think it has a great blend.
Sure.
You see, the blending is good.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful that out in the world we have these minds that approach it from a totally different perspective.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Well, as I said, I did have a small opportunity to work with Lorraine, and they're also very different, but I remember just coming out of those lessons and that opportunity thinking, gosh, why have I never heard anything about this ever? And I had worked with a ton of amazing coaches, and I'm thinking, wow, what just happened? And I can only imagine that's very similar. Now, keeping that in mind, all of us are trying to do something better. The coaches are, I would hope, I think, that there are a lot of coaches trying to do something better, trying to combine the things that we've learned and trying to be able to pass it on in maybe a more efficient and better process, maybe faster, maybe more efficiently, maybe better explained. How do you feel like you've been able to combine the things that you've learned from such different teachers and such different approaches that clearly they had their ways of attaining success? How have you combined those things to find your success in your teaching?
That's a wonderful question. Well, I can tell you, there was no conscious thought on, I'm going to do it this way. There was actually, I tell a lie. That's a lie. There was one. I thought, while I was still a competitor, before I was really doing a lot of teaching, I used to write it down in a book, the do's and don'ts of teaching. I thought, I will never do this. I will never tell this to people. I will never approach it like that.
Right.
So I had a huge area of what I did not want to do as a dance teacher.
Right.
Okay? And I think because of there was so much I didn't want to step into that it made what I do offer is for the benefit of the person whoever's standing in front of me.
Sure.
For whatever they're capable of at this time.
Right.
And it's always about building on their strengths, regardless of the age or whatever wherever they are. Because because I teach children and
Sure.
I teach senior citizens as well, people who have some mental disabilities.
Sure.
We teach across the board, right?
Of course.
So it's I think what's happened is it's just become a very human experience.
Right.
To touch a person, to let them feel something, or to hear something in the music that they never heard before. It's about the experience of the dance.
Sure.
So I feel that that's where I've grown to, because compared to when I was learning to dance, we didn't have all this technology. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have
Right.
as many resources then as young dancers have today. So all they have to do is get on the internet, and they can find lessons, and they can watch, and they can be told, straighten your leg here, settle your hip there, rotate, and blah, blah. So I don't need to do that.
Right.
They're saturated with that.
Yeah.
Okay? What they need is to be guided to open up who they are. Let themselves shine through, and let them share this with another person.
Right.
And to actually feel something. I mean, you can, of course I feel something when I straighten my leg, but it's,
Right.
Right? It's nothing special. So I really think that through the teachers I had who demanded that of me, they made me break down my walls. They made me step up to perform and show up,
Sure. Yeah.
I remember so clearly having lessons, and it was I guess the overriding topic was expression. And this teacher kept looking at me and saying, you look like he kept calling me a prune face. Okay? Because he said, no, that's awful. Look at you. You look miserable. Look at you. And I was so angry and so frustrated. And it was all about, it was about, he needed me to break down my walls and start to allow me to come through it genuinely.
Right.
It wasn't about the fake smile. It was really about, yeah.
And that's so hard. It's amazing to me always how dance has so many opportunities to sort of break down those walls that we have and that we create for ourselves. And it seems so amazing to me that no matter what, and no matter the couple that we tend to work with, their walls show up because of dance. And then dance tends to find a way of going, well, if you don't fix this, we're not going any further. And yeah. It tends to kind of stop you in your tracks.
That's true. And what's so beautiful about dance is whoever you are reveals itself through the way you move your body.
It's so true.
Even if they they can talk one talk, right? But the body's saying something else.
Absolutely.
And when the two things are not in harmony, the body is the truth, and the words are, and that is, I don't know, I guess that's just so apparent, and that is the challenge in order to make the two congruent.
Sure. And watching, the general audience of ballroom dance, I think they know it, even if they're not dancers. As you watch dancers specifically, there's an energy about it. And I think one of the things that I hear that is so fascinating when I talk to other people about the fact that I'm a coach and a judge and I do this on a regular basis, they're always so fascinated about how we can see it, how we can see what's happening, and how we can look at it and be able to understand what's happening so quickly. Mm-hmm. And I think for us, we've attuned into the energy of what's happening, and then we utilize our experience and the lessons that we've had and bringing that to the table, and then we can look at it and see very quickly from an energy standpoint what's going on. And I think when people tell me that they're amazed by that, I think, well, gosh, you can do that too. And you do when you watch the audience, because you'll look at a couple and say, and not have any dance experience at all, but you'll look at that couple and go, they're not very good. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's something wrong with them. And they know that too, but they look at us and go, wow, how do you do that? And you go, well, actually, I just do it every day, so it's not that big of a deal to me.
Right.
But they do it too. And I think sometimes when I talk to these dancers, it's like they've put on these blinders in front. And I say, well, do you watch your own videos? And they go, yeah. And I said, well, what do you see? And they go, I don't know.
They don't know. You're absolutely right.
I don't know what I see.
They don't know. And I find that oftentimes I go into a lesson and I try to pick the brain of whoever's standing in front of me, because what's so important is how their perspective. They have a picture in their mind. They have heard words. They have heard oh, you're supposed to perform.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what perform means to them could look like, oh my gosh, look at these people jumping around and they look silly and they look foolish, right?
Yeah.
But in their mind, this is how I perform. And
Right.
so what they perceive as performing and what we see as performing, right? So the picture in their mind, I think, is how they understand what it is. And
Yeah.
yeah, and on an intuitive level, oftentimes the audience who may not understand dancing, but they understand if they feel something, if like, oh, that touched me, oh, that was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And that is an honest
Yeah.
response to an honest performance.
Sure.
Because we may not know all the ins and outs of a connection or a timing but you know truth when you hear it, when you see it,
Yeah.
when you're made to feel something, it touches you.
Yeah.
And if it touches you, you've done your job as a performer, as a dancer.
When I believe that there's this incredible mind, body, soul connection that dance brings to the table, and we call that our triangle. And it's really phenomenal that when you put those three together,
Mm-hmm.
that you can accomplish some pretty amazing things. And in that light, it's part of why in our group we created this idea of ballroom for life. And so what kind of life lessons, I mean, we've been talking about them, so I'm sure the audience can hear this right now and hear it in what we're talking about, but just to make it a little bit more upfront and a little bit more obvious, what kind of life lessons have you learned because of ballroom?
Oh, well, I've learned as a teacher, I've learned to be open-minded, because if I go, as long as I am open, I will often learn from my students.
Sure.
And the more open I am to, and I'm willing to learn from them, the more they are open to receive information from me, ideas, suggestions. I don't know if I'm right. I don't know, but it's this, so I'm open and I appreciate what you have, what you bring to the table. Right. Because you see, back in my day, it was the teacher was up high and the students is down below, right?
Sure.
This discrepancy here.
Yeah.
But it can't work like that anymore.
Right.
It cannot work like that anymore. Yes, I'm older, I have more experience. And I'm here to share my experience and my knowledge with this younger dancer in front of me. But they also have a different view of life than I do. They have different experiences. And I can learn from them, and I have to be open to hear them, to see who they are, in order that I can be effective as a teacher.
Sure.
So what I've learned through this one life lesson is being open as a teacher, being open as a student.
Sure.
Because I am both.
Right.
I am both. And the appreciation for the differences, our differences, because I've spent a lot of time in Japan, I spent a lot of time in Taiwan and, Asia, just
Sure.
Asia, and spent a lot of time in Australia and in Europe in general. And, we're all different. We're at the very deepest level, we're all the same.
Yes.
But the way we conduct our life, we're all different.
Right.
And even in Cuba, too, right? Because
Sure.
I've been to Cuba 3 times. And so we're different in how we go about it. But we have to appreciate our differences and appreciate it and benefit from it, you see. Benefit from it. Because we help each other.
Right.
So, so these are, I mean, besides, of course, always being grateful, respect, things, but clearly, I have to always remind myself, there are certain things I have to remind myself, look, I might be the teacher, I might have to go in and give them a lesson, but it's bigger than that.
Sure.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah.
I have to.
That sounds like in terms of the teacher side of it, I think oftentimes that's great advice for parents, because in so many instances, as they are trying to raise their young children and do the right thing in this very crazy technology world that is so unlike anything we've experienced before as a human race, that's an approach I think that would probably benefit a lot of parents, and we found massive success with as dance teachers, and through the years of teaching for both of us, I know that our students will come back and be so thankful for the lessons that they were taught, and they kind of revere us as parents through our life because of what we were able to do with them and how we shared that experience with them, rather than maybe being a dictator through that process.
Yeah, that
And
dictator thing doesn't work. Doesn't work.
What kind of lessons do you feel everyday people, because again, some of our audience might not be dancers, and I know are not dancers. So what kind of lessons do you feel everyday people that aren't dancers can learn from dance, even if they don't want to take up dance?
Yeah. Awareness. All right? Awareness. You see, and it's so difficult to put it in words, but
it is, yeah.
Okay, but becoming, so this is in the dance experience, we stand in a room, okay? We hear music. I have to do something with my feet, right? To stay on a beat, right? And then you put a person in front of me and I have to feel them, touch them. And then we're going to try and pull all of these things together. I see, right? It's right. Because I'm integrating all my senses.
Sure.
Okay? So the activity in my brain I have to be very present, and I have to become aware instantly of all that's going on around me. And I don't know of any other activity that a couple can do together that makes them so sensitive and so present to the other person in the moment,
right,
as dancing. It's not the same when you're playing tennis. When you do, let's say, golf, of course you're very focused, but it's not a shared experience with another person.
Exactly.
So you become aware. You become aware of holding another person and how you hold them.
Right.
Is it too tense? Is it too loose? Is it too high? And so just touching another person suddenly means something. Oh, I'm going to touch you and guide you because I want you to stand on my left side, or I want you to turn under the arm. So I have to do something, and I have to pay attention, not just to touching you, but I'm touching you so that I can show you where to go.
Sure.
And do it with the music, and I don't want to knock you off balance. And so the way dancing brings us, at the same time, we become very present, and yet we're so aware of many of our senses and the surroundings.
I appreciate that so much because of, again, we want to use technology now, and we're using plenty of it to try to help change people's lives and how to better our world. But in so many instances, the technology is also doing its fair share of disconnecting us from actual awareness and actual touch and actual connection between us and another person. And so it's I really do appreciate that idea and the concept of being aware, because it's something people are doing less and less of.
Well, I give you a little example, okay? Because I fly a lot.
Sure.
And so I'm walking onto the plane, and I have my roller bag, and I have my purse on my shoulder, and I'm so aware of if I'm bumping into people.
Of course,
okay?
Yeah.
Right? Because I need to be aware of that, because A, it's rude, but also I'm just so used to it you know, being too close to somebody.
Sure.
Right? And how many times, so I will see people coming down the aisle and they are so unaware of the backpack on the back. They turn around, whack somebody who's sitting on the aisle. It's this sense of, it's not just being conscious, oh, I don't want to be rude, but it's an awareness of space. It's an awareness of people being, am I too close? Am I too far? You know, and it's I see it all the time, how people run into each other and they, you know, they just don't, they're just not present. They're not.
Awareness is huge. I actually am big on having my children start their own business, and so I've been working with my daughter on starting her own podcast and starting her own thing. And her big topic for her podcast is about being in what we call the 1%, and it's that awareness. It's getting into that place where you are aware of other people, other people's lives. You're not the center of the universe, and this idea that you don't want to live in the 99%. It's not a scientific idea, but it's the idea is that, hey, we need to journey into a place where we're in the 1%, where we actually are part of the 1% of the world that actually realizes the other part of the world exists. And that awareness is brought to light so much with dance, and it's fun listening to my teenage daughter talking about how she's going through this journey to get there, and she wants to help other people try to get there.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And it's fabulous. You know, what a cool thing to do. And I think a lot of it is because she's a dancer and she's learning to dance and she's going through the process.
There's one other thing that is so obvious in our dance world.
Sure.
And that is, when you go out to perform, when you go into a dance studio, you expose part of your vulnerability.
Oh, absolutely.
And that vulnerability is so endearing. Sometimes people are very afraid of dancing. They say, oh, they're going to look at me. Oh. And the truth is, the ones that touch your heart, for example, I was in Cuba, and there was this, we were doing a performance in a theater, and there was this little couple, and they sat on a bus for 3 hours to come into the Havana, and they got up, and they were part of our group.
Sure.
And they danced together, and they looked at each other, and they smiled. And of course, you could stand there and say, oh yeah, but they don't do this, and they don't do what we do. But the fact that they they got up and they danced together, and they simply loved it.
Yeah.
Was so touching that it brought everybody to tears. It brought all the dancers to tears.
Sure.
Because it reminded us, you know what? This is why we're here.
Right.
You see?
Right.
And when you see somebody come in with some inhibition, or they're self-conscious, or but they're able to overcome one little, a new skill.
Sure.
It brings the house down.
Yeah.
It just is. That is so rewarding. It is so fulfilling.
Yeah.
And it's the greatest trophy. It's
really
the greatest
is.
trophy you can receive. Is, you go in there, and because everybody's afraid. This is the point. Everybody who steps out there is afraid. They're self-conscious.
Even the most versed dancers.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The higher up, what that saying, what the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Yeah. Just look at the top of the field and you'll see the
Yeah. It's so true.
But well, to perform means you have to kind of go out there and expose yourself.
Yeah.
But the world loves you. When you do it with a smile on your face, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
You melt the hearts around you. And that aspect of being present and this is something dance teaches us. I don't know where you learn it in the other side of life.
All right. For those of my audience that haven't worked with you, I can attest very easily to the fact that you're an amazing teacher, and it is very apparent to me that you love what you do. And I know they can hear that. I'm sure they can hear it just listening to this. Can you talk to the audience about the importance of doing and pursuing what you love? Because I know that in past days and in our history, it's not always been something that has been promoted as much, to go after and do what you love. And I think it's a special breed of artists in the world that really have sacrificed and done what it takes to go after what they love and not necessarily go the status quo. And so it's very important to, from my perspective, I think, just to share with people out there that there are so many artists and people that have sacrificed to do what they love and to go after what they love. And so to me, it's very apparent that you've done that you've gone after what you love, and you do it on a regular basis, and there is a sacrifice to it, and there is something that goes with that, but the reward seems pretty great on the other side.
Well, we come into this world, and we come into this world and we start, we go to school, we have our parent or / parents, we're growing up, and it's these universal questions: who am I? Where am I going to go? What's going to happen to me? Why am I here?
Sure.
What am I? Why am I? What is my purpose? Why was I born?
Yeah.
What is my purpose? And I do feel that, and this is where maybe we're all the same. I think people want to do good.
Yeah.
I want to make a difference. I want to, okay, and I want to enjoy myself while I'm doing this thing. You know, my driving force was I needed to answer the question: am I good at this? Can I be good at this? Because at the time, I didn't know what I was good at. Right? So I needed to find out, well, what am I good at, and how far can I take it? And it's the sense of fulfillment and satisfaction goes beyond money, absolutely beyond. I know, there are these sayings that if you do what you love, the money will come, and I'm sure that's very true. That's true.
Sure.
And to continue to develop oneself, to stay with that thing you love, and continue to find ways to let it touch other people, bring it to other people, let it make a difference in other people's life. That is a reward.
Yeah.
That is a reward. For artists, the sacrifice, it's the uncertainty. That's truly where we are. We don't. Most artists are self-employed. We don't have job security. We don't get our health insurance paid for us. We don't have a secure retirement. Right? We have to create we have to learn these things through trial and error, and as we go along, we bump our way down the road.
Yeah.
And in the end, it usually works out anyway.
Right.
And maybe in the being an artist, you're people tend to be quite sensitive, but facing ourselves, facing our fears or our greatest insecurities, there are ways through it.
Yeah.
And there's a large community of dancers and fellow artists who want to help. They want to be included. They want to provide support.
Right.
So that the sharing is also a big part of what we do. Here in the dance world, there are relationships, people who have known each other for well into 60 plus years.
Sure.
We meet people, and one way or another, we are connected to them for years and years and years. And even though life takes us in different directions, we have these ongoing relationships, and we can support one another and offer advice and direction. And
Sure. And so often the advice is stuff we've learned from dance.
yes,
It's funny how that
that's
works.
True. That's true.
All right. What has been a trial or a challenge in your life that you can now look back on and be thankful for?
Oh, I hate to say it, but rejection.
Mm-hmm.
Rejection.
Sure.
You're looking at me so puzzled. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious because that's it's such a common thing, and especially for our younger people, they're so afraid.
They're afraid to not be accepted. They're afraid to,
afraid of that rejection on so many levels. On the level of going out and competing and not making a cut, not one cut. They're so worried about it. They're so worried about going out and I've won this before, but what if I don't win it again? They're so worried about so many things.
I'll tell you, I so hear you. And why? Because we take it personally. Because we think it's a reflection on who we are personally,
right,
versus it's really about the fact that you're off balance and you're off time.
Right.
I love you to death, but dude, you got to stand up or you got to stay on balance. So
Sure.
I know in my own career, having been rejected on because look, of course we won things, but there was a lot of things where we were rejected on the way.
Yeah.
And I used to find it so frustrating, and I used to say to John, if they just knew who we were, they'd really like us, and then they'd mark us. And he used to look at me and say, Nadia, he said, because they don't mark us doesn't mean they don't like us.
Right.
It means they like the other guy better. So he was trying to say it's not personal.
Right.
But because the dancing meant so much to me, it was personal.
Sure.
And one of the most useful pieces of advice was when we were sitting with a counselor, like a sports psychologist, and they drew 2 circles on paper, and the first circle was all the things that are within our control and all those things that are outside of our control. And anything that's outside of our control, he gave me a big red pen and I could draw an X through it.
Sure.
And that actually was very therapeutic because in that moment, I had this epiphany of, wow, I cannot control the other couples. I cannot control the judges. How many things are outside of my control? And I didn't know that. I didn't know that as a teenager growing up. I didn't know that as a child in my little dance class.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, somewhere along the way, I actually felt that everything is on my shoulders.
Sure.
I have to do, and if I don't do all of this, I will not be successful. So there was this strange contradiction in my understanding.
Yeah.
So being shown, no, only this handful of elements is within your control.
Right.
My practice, my fitness, my health, my attention during a lesson, things were within my control. And suddenly I thought, oh, I can handle that.
Yeah.
I thought I had to handle everything.
Yeah.
So experiencing rejection from this perspective taught me how, I better smarten up or sharpen up my skills on these
Sure.
things I can control and make sure that I'm appealing to the ones that matter.
Right. The one of the things that slowly but surely I've been sought out for in the past years and to recently is something I'm going to be writing a book about. We hope it comes out in December. It's going to be, the topic is emotional mastery, and I feel that as a dancer we have so many experiences with having to manage that on so many different levels, from the story of a dance to the story of the dances as they relate together, to the story of how we handle competition, the stresses of it, and how we learn in a lesson, and being able to handle our finances when we've spent all our money on lessons and we're trying to figure out how to eat. And so there's so many different areas of emotional mastery. What's your take on emotional mastery in relationship to our current status as a human race? Again, where we're at right now, where do you think we are? Where do you think the general populace is in terms of emotional mastery?
Oh dear, that's a big question. Yeah, especially today after this all that's going on with the Supreme Court.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think as a society we're moving forward. We move forward, but we move forward with ups and downs,
Sure.
I like that young women are expressing themselves and voicing their whatever they need to voice, right?
Sure.
Okay, and society's listening. I don't like when so I appreciate that women are voicing themselves. I want it to be equal and fair for men as well.
Sure.
Men are so important to us,
Right.
in our life, within a family, in relationships, in society. We need both. We need men and women.
Right.
Nobody, so the fact of people being able to express themselves both through anger or frustration, as well as through a sense of injustice or vulnerability. This is huge for both men and women.
Yeah.
I don't like an abuse of these emotional states, though,
Sure.
either. I don't like it if somebody becomes overly emotional to the point where you're feeling pressured, or you're feeling pressured to rectify a situation, or
Sure.
they're using their emotional frustration to affect their surroundings in a negative way.
Sure.
So.
Sure.
But I want, emotions are, we are emotional beings, our emotions are so important. So to hear each other, to receive each other's emotion from a place of just being neutral, of just, let me hear you, and then figure out what am I going to do with what I'm hearing.
Right.
Listening is such an important part of us being able to handle each other's emotions.
Sure.
And oftentimes the listening is not where it should be.
Yeah.
So if I can listen to whatever's being expressed, and then truly hear what they're saying, not just their words, but the intention behind it, or and I can perhaps empathize with them and imagine if I was in that place.
Sure.
And it's regardless if it's a man or a woman,
Yeah.
Then I can respond and provide some support or advice.
Right.
If I've been a good listener too, you see.
Yeah.
I'm not sure people are listening well enough to be supportive for others' emotions.
Sure.
If I'm only listening to myself and feeling, and I'm all caught up with myself,
Right.
then I want you to hear me, listen to me.
Sure.
But the truth is, it's not all about me.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to change the kind of direction a little bit to finish off We only have a few more questions for you. One of them is a little bit more about, we talk about magic moments, and obviously my companies and the podcast is called Majic for Life, and we have a dance studio, brick and mortar business that's called Dance Magic, and we kind of play on the words, the history of how I got that name into my life is fun, but we like the play on the words, and this idea of having magic moments is a big deal, and I think a lot of people forget about it. But in that idea and in that concept of having magic moments, what are some long-term, in your future, magic moments that you look forward to in the future? Because it's always good to set goals. It's always good to look ahead. So what kind of long-term magic moments are you looking forward to?
Well, I look forward to find out if I actually ever retire or not. Because the truth is, I just, people my age are talking about the retirement.
Sure.
And the thing is, I don't know, people in the dance world, we don't seem to retire. We seem to just keep going. And maybe we fade out slowly, but, of course I love my dance, and right, I love my dance life. I love when I can help young dancers. This I love. It's truly rewarding, but it's also very tiring.
Indeed.
On every level, this life challenges us,
right?
Emotionally, energetically. What feeds me, what helps refuel me, is when I spend time with my dogs. I have 3 dogs, and of course, being with my families. I don't have children, and so it's not like I'm putting my dogs in front of my kids. I don't have kids, so
sure.
But when I have downtime and I'm with my dogs on the beach, I love to be with them on the beach. Okay,
nice.
So being in nature, but particularly at the beach. And so this truly refuels, feeds me, and I charge up again. As long as I have the opportunity to do that, I would like to keep going forward and continue to grow myself, and then share it with the younger generation.
Sure.
So I guess the magic moments in the future is just continue. I'm just going to continue to get older.
Yeah.
I'm going to accumulate more experiences, and
sure.
Hopefully just be able to be a part of the dance world as it grows. And I would really love for more people in the world of maybe therapy or things, to realize the benefits of dance. I would more of the world to see what we have to offer. And integrate it into their maybe corporations or
indeed
their practices, and because dancing is it's life changing. We have people who even in the organization, I'm on the dance board of Fred Astaire.
Sure.
There are people there, and dancing, they all have wonderful stories. There are so many stories about how it is affecting their life.
For sure.
And I'd love to be able to witness this and be a part of it,
I think it's headed that way, and that's a huge motivation behind Majic for Life. Being able to
sounds
share
like it. It sounds like what you are doing is, because I'm not yet familiar with all of your projects, but just the fact of doing this podcast to share with your listeners dance. Because here I am, a dancer, but I'm talking to a group of people who are non-dancing.
Sure.
And yet the message is, you know what? Even if you don't dance, there's a lot of benefit to what we have. And, building bridges from what you do to what I do to,
Well, you incidentally answered So I was going to ask you what your short-term magic moments were and what your current, like what you see as magic moments currently, but you answered those so beautifully, and what a great segue. I didn't even have to ask. It was awesome. So let's finish up with a couple of easy, just, short questions that are just kind of fun. Anybody who, it's technology, so they're going to look up your name, and I'm sure they'll look you up on Google, and there's plenty of pictures and videos, and they'll be able to see who you are and what you did, and as did we. And one of the things that we loved, and I thought it was so great, we pulled up one of your videos that popped up, and it was just the first one that popped up, and the first thing we said was, "Oh my gosh, she's so buff. Look at her. She's so buff. She's so great." You were so incredibly great shape, and I was so in love with your back. I was like, "My goodness, look at her back. It's amazing." What did you do during your time that you were in such great shape? My goodness.
Well, you have to understand. Okay, well, in those days, in those days, I was not the typical dancer body. I'm short, I'm quite muscular.
Oh gosh, you look so tall in the video.
Well, that was because we learned how to stretch and stand up, that's why.
Okay.
But you know what, I'll tell you, I don't know how to answer the question. I know I can tell you that a lot of times, we danced a lot.
Yeah.
We danced a lot, and we were doing things to be fit, aerobic training,
Sure.
things like this. But we also did a lot of things that were not good for the body. We did a lot of things that were not good for the body too.
Sure.
But there's so much great information out there now about how to train correctly. For example, one thing with me is I was always very self-conscious about my legs because I had quite big thighs compared to these ballet trained girls. They were skinny little minis and very flexible, but I'm a power dancer. So but I was also, through dancing incorrectly or not actually understanding how to transfer my weight, overexerting through my thighs, so my legs became bigger than they needed to be.
Sure.
Right? And then the diet wasn't great. let me tell you that. There was still a lot of potato chips being snuck in, and even if we worked hard. So we were not we didn't have an organic diet, and we didn't we ate plenty of junk food and stuff that's not good. But towards the end of the career, I can say that I learned to dance more efficiently.
Sure.
And that was huge.
Yeah.
Because it took stress and strain off the parts of my body that normally I was pushing against to hold myself up.
Yeah.
So by having to learn to be more accurate with my balance, accurate with my timing, my body started to actually relax the parts that could relax.
Sure. And
use more effectively the parts that would help my dancing, help me move, help my body. So
everybody always wants to know, I swear, as a ballroom dancer, within a very short conversation of meeting somebody that isn't, this is a question that always comes up. What's your favorite dance?
Oh no, they're right. That is the question that always comes up.
It always comes up.
It does, doesn't it?
It's like clockwork. I can tell
You're
somebody
right.
I'm a ballroom dancer, and they go, "So what's your favorite dance?"
Yeah.
And
okay. You see, depends on my mood. Depends on the day.
I'm with you.
Because
I'm with you. Yeah, absolutely.
the paso doble is a very different mood than the rumba, as opposed to the jive, and it depends on the day. Depends how my mood. If I'm not in a great mood, let's do the waltz or something, But I don't have a favorite dance because every dance calls on every part of my emotional spectrum.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and I like moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, some days I'm more upbeat and I'll jump around and I love doing hustle and then
Yeah.
other times I think, oh no, I want to be a little more serious and intense, and therefore, the cha-cha or the paso doble shows up. But I love the movement. I love the music and I love the movement.
I'm with you. It's such a hard question to answer, and we get it. We get asked so many times.
That's so true. Right.
Okay, and what are the top 3 books that have changed your life?
That's a
Your
big
top
question.
3. That's a tough one.
That's a tough one. Top 3 books.
Top 3 books. Yep.
Okay. Wow.
Go with your gut.
Oh man, because I'm thinking back, what have I read? And I bounce around a lot with books and audio now.
Sure.
So.
Well, you can count your audiobooks too, because
Uh-huh.
We're dancers, and I go through so many books on audio
Yeah.
that I can get through more that way. And so some I haven't actually read because I can get through it quicker audio-wise. So you could definitely count that.
Yeah. I think a book that really helped set me on a new course was A Celestine Prophecy.
Okay.
That was one book. That's going, right?
Yeah.
And then, another book that really changed perhaps my understanding of my role in dance life was Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? It's a bit, but I need a business approach.
Yeah.
So that opened my eyes, opened my mind.
Yeah.
And then the third book. Well, it's out there. I can't say there's just 3, but
It's hard to choose.
it is.
I'd have a hard time
there
choosing 3,
are,
but it's worth asking.
well, there's the book Conversations with God.
Mm-hmm.
That was very helpful.
Indeed.
And as well, there's a book called Daring Greatly.
Daring Great. I love
Yes,
that.
Daring
Yeah.
Greatly.
Sure.
And probably The Power of Now.
Oh, yes.
So it's a little bit of a mishmash,
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to pick just 3.
Well, because they all had an effect,
Sure.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe, but I remember a moment after I graduated from college, and I remember thinking so distinctly to myself, I finished. I'm done. I have my degree. I am never reading another book again in my life. And I remember thinking that, I remember having that exact thought and being very passionate about it. And it wasn't until I met a very amazing lady, Diane, that was just an amazing mentor to me, changed my world. And she got me to be curious. And she reminded me that the curiosity was really what was missing when it was reading those books for college. I just didn't care. I wasn't curious about it at all, and that whole process was life-changing for me. So I appreciate you sharing that with us, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will go and pick up those books, and they're gonna find some pretty amazing things there with just a little bit of curiosity. I am so honored and thankful, and I feel so privileged to have you on our podcast.
Thank you.
And I know just from this a nice short time that they'll be able to listen to you and your experiences in your life, that I know you will have changed at least one person's life out there today, and I know that's going to happen, although I know it's going to be more than that. And really just on a quest, I'm on a quest to just add so much more value to people's lives, that they're inspired to make positive changes and become better people.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we can keep doing that and doing it through these easy ways that are out there, that we're going to change this world to be a better place in a very short period of time. So I appreciate you very much.
Thank you,
and
Michael.
I'm so grateful you could come today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate it. And your questions are thought-provoking. And now I'm going to leave here and I'm going to start going, what are my favorite books? There is a great book, one other great book. It's called Power versus Force.
I love that.
And that book
Yeah.
is truly the sort of book you go back to time and time again.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but now you've got my mind spinning. But thank you, thank you for doing this, and thank you
Absolutely.
for exposing the dance world to more people and the changes, the positive changes it can make. And
Sure.
well, I'm just so honored to be included. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Are you loving Majic for Life? Please like and share our podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Interested in learning to ballroom dance? Check out ballroomforlife.com/free for a free 3-day trial. You can learn to dance right in your own living room and change your life forever.